Welcome to the stream. I can't call you Leo. It's just very strange.
Okay, but for those who do not know who Leo McBride is,
yes,
it's a nom de plume. It's a pen name for Stephen Hunt, and
that's you.
That's me. That's me. And the reason that I use a nom de plume, perhaps to quickly explain, is because for anybody who reads science fiction, fantasy, there's already a splendid author already by the name of Stephen Hunt. So, so hence I had to come up with a whole new identity, and Leo McBride it is.
Leo
and today I'm joined by my little minion, Charlotte.
Hello. Inklings Press, and how did it start? And I wasn't actually there for the start of it. So, Steve, why don't you tell us a little bit about how Inklings Press got started and why it exists?
Well, once upon a time, we got very drunk. And
a good start.
A great deal of the credit for Inklings Press, I would say, has to go to Ricardo Victoria, who, for those who followed Inklings Press, he's in tons and tons of the books already. So he really was a big driving force at the start, where it was just trying to get friends together who had done some writing, wanted to do some writing, wanted to do more with their writing, and start up a writing group. And from that, there was, involvement from plenty of others, such as Brent, if you take a look back at our first book, various of the people from that book, who are still in the original group that we started up on Facebook called the Inklings. Right. Somewhere along the way, we sort of like looked at each other and said, we could publish some of these. We could do something with these. And so Inklings Press became a thing,
right?
A publishing group,
right? And of course, that led to, if I can just pull it out. Well, this is, of course, the compilation of the first two Kindle books. Hey. Which became the paperback Tales from the Tower. What's beside him? I can't even see it. It's on the top. Tales from the Universe was the first book that I joined in. I was... there's one as well. I've been a little bit involved peripherally with Tales from the Tavern, at least giving feedback on some of the stories. And I felt that, out of focus as I am, perhaps I should put my money where my mouth is and put a story in. But now it's been a few years now, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's what, 3 years? So we've done like 7 books now, and I think we've learned lessons as we've gone along. I think our design has improved. I think our willingness to listen to criticism has improved. Because we're writers, so we craft these little, what we think are gems and wonderful little delights that we can share with the world.
Indeed.
And then we present them to our fellow writers, and they say, eh.
I've come to terms with the idea that whatever ending that I've come up for one of my stories, Brent will have a better idea for it.
But I think initially, when I'm sure I'm generalizing it, it's not universal. But initially, when you're tiptoeing into the universal, that would have worked so well if it was in focus. I think initially, when you're tiptoeing into doing some writing and such, like, I think it's probably a little natural to feel a bit defensive when people say, well, I quite like the story, but...
yes, of course.
Then you come to realize that helps you, and that you can actually sharpen your story, that you can make it better.
And that's really fundamentally part of the Inklings ethos, I guess, now. Yeah. It's not just about finding a story, it's about helping those writers whose stories we like find the best version of that story.
Involved with as well.
We've had some people who are in the independent science fiction fantasy world kind of names by now, really.
Yes, well, strictly speaking, I suppose the latest book, not that I want to jump ahead to it.
The latest book?
In front of the screen.
These ones, yes.
But if we look on the back of that, we've got, you know, Daniel Benson, Sidewise Award winner. Much as I'm to name him, Brent Harris, double Sidewise Award nominee, and probably watching this right now, shaking his fist at the screen. There's Gideon Marcus, who was at Worldcon on various panels, was up there shortlisted for one of the categories and things like that. And that's not short selling anybody else as well. There's lots of other people who, you know, if you mention names to people, they go, oh yeah, so it's got a story in by Bonnie Milani, you know, and people know her from all kinds of places. So I think it's a good thing. I think it's also good that we still have people coming through who are still perhaps not got many story credits to them.
No, absolutely. It is part of what Inklings is about, after all. It's about providing a platform for new writers as well as getting out there for the names, as I say.
And I think one of the other lessons we've learned, and we're still learning, you know, I
think I should say so.
Goodness knows, from this last book, we sat down afterwards and went, right, how can we do this better next time as well?
Let's talk a little bit about some of your stories. Just because, you know, I'm interviewing you, that's the central conceit of what's going on here. I mean, you know, you're the one in focus at the end of the day, and we're focusing on you. Yes, absolutely. It's all part of the plan, really. It's keeping us on brand. But from my point of view, one of the high points of every anthology is getting your story to read. And I have to say, well, it is true. But, you've had some of the stories that you put into the books have been particularly spectacular. Do you have a favourite? I mean, I know it's like choosing between.
Oh gosh, did very well, but I did enjoy the story from Tales of Wonder. If that's in any kind of focus, which was The Last Sorcerer, which it came about from a slightly different writing process for me, in that when I sat down to write it, all I had in my head was the title of the story, which often comes way later, way down the road later. After many, many drinks later, I finally stumble upon a title. But also, at the same time as I had at the same time as I had the title, I also had the very last words of the story.
Right, yeah.
Which I don't want to spoil for people, obviously.
Of course, no, I wouldn't encourage it.
I'd say, by golly, that was fabulous, particularly that Leo McBride thing. But because I sort of like knew where I was going to get to, but didn't entirely know where I was starting out, the thing really took form as I wrote. To get there.
Okay, I have to say it is probably my favourite of your stories. My other favourite, I guess, I mean, pull my books out, is in Tales from the Underground. And I mean, it's a stupid reason, I guess, for particularly enjoying a story, but I just love the title. I mean, I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, I like the story. I like all your stories. As I said, one of the high points for every anthology for me is seeing what Steve's come up with this time. But in Tales from the Underground, which was actually was a bit of a departure for the group, actually, I think, because it's not themed around a genre like the rest of the books were.
Well, strictly speaking, I think we got mugged. I think the writers from previous anthologies just collectively said, we're darn well writing about the underground. And we went, well, okay. And it got some darn good entries.
And I guess we caved.
Yes, good, well played.
You see, that's why I'm here, being that focused on telling bad jokes. So my favourite thing about your book, your story in Tales from the Underground, I mean, it's a good story, and don't get me wrong, I'm not belittling it anyway, but the title is, and I'm having to read this, is Professor, I can't even read it, teeth in, Professor Algernon Whitlock's Exotic and Fabulous Grand Tour of the Underworld. Now, is that one where the title came first? or variations on the title, I guess.
The title was early, very early, but I'd been kicking around the idea of this underworld exploration in a slightly steampunky, Victoriana kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
But the title really kicked it on.
Sure.
I will also throw a shout in there for Claire Buss for taking a splendid twist on Underground by making it about the underground as in a furtive resistance movement.
I think Underground Scratchings, isn't it, Claire's story? I think, if I remember right. It's a bit of a palate cleanser in the middle of the book. I think it's a very fresh story.
Yes, and when you've sort of like got everybody's expectations built up for, okay, we're going to be in a cave again, suddenly she throws in this quite delightful twist on it all, and I thought that was nice. That was clever.
The other thing I wanted to talk very briefly about is about Altered Instinct, which is, well, would you call it your blog, or is it's a bit more than that, really, isn't it?
It is my blog, but I am delighted to host other people there from time to time, and it's like many things in the first year of this little baby, who's fast asleep here now, by the way. Completely gone. In the first year of this little one, that keeping up with the blog has been a challenge at times. Yes. So blog posts have been a little more sporadic, but it serves as a handy resource for being able to get some of my stories out there, some of other people's stories out there. And one of the real treats with it is that people have approached me and asked to have some of their stories on their blog, like there's a writer from Canada by the name of DM Gillis. He's got 3 stories, I think, on there, and they're fabulous. He's a great little writer. Altered Instinct is going through a little bit of a tweak at the minute, in that.
Tell me more.
Well, in the next couple of weeks, as it's going to become, as well as a blog, it's going to become a magazine. Now, that's going to be, initially, I'm aiming it at being a quarterly magazine, and it's going to be a paid outlet for writers. So the initial issue has its lead story already lined up and booked in from the writing team of E.M. Swifthook and Jane Jago. And that's a story set within their Di and Julia universe. They have things with it is that because I now live in the Bahamas, I want to try and get more involvement from people in the local community, people who are writers and artists here. So there's an artist who's creating, well, I've given him free license to create what he wants. I didn't want to stifle him too much, but I hinted towards perhaps an ongoing comic each issue. But what he comes up with, I shall be delighted to see, and he's a local chap. And there's another couple of writers I'm trying to get involved.
What exactly? But there is something in the magazine about Inklings, right? That's the plan?
Indeed, yes. We've just got the latest collection out, which, as ever, as soon as the previous collection is done, thoughts turn to, ooh, what's next? And so the magazine will include something teasing what's next and perhaps opening submissions for what will be the next book.
Your ideas intrigue me. Thank you very much, Stephen Hunt, aka Leo McBride, aka Inklings Guru Guy. It's been a lot of fun talking to you, and I hope the people who have, I hope somebody watched it and I've enjoyed it as well. Thanks very much for your time.
Go buy the books.
Sorry, God, I'm really. This marketing thing does not come naturally to me. Go and buy the book. The latest one, as we talked about, is Tales from Alternate Earths Volume 2. It has stories from 2 Sidewise nominated and 1 winner, and it should all go to. And there are 6 other books. If alternate history is not your thing, we have anthologies: Tales of Wonder for science fantasy, Tales from the Underground for stories about caves and being underground, science fiction, Tales from the Universe. Tales from the Tavern is about a fantasy and horror anthology. So we've got something for everybody, really.
And one last thing, if I might.
Of course.
For anybody viewing, whatever you're reading, if you're enjoying it, go leave a review. The author will love you.
Yes, indeed.